is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the Samsung Galaxy Note 2. It's going to be available on every major US carrier, and we have the Sprint version right here. Regardless of which carrier you get, though, you're really getting pretty much the same phone. Samsung has standardized the software and standardized the hardware. 5.5-inch Super AMOLED display here, quad-core Exynos CPU, extremely fast with Mali 400 graphics. LTE on all models except for, well, those carriers that don't have LTE, like T-Mobile, for example. Android 4.1 Jelly Bean, though you might be hard-pressed to tell it from looking at it. A lot of other good features. And, of course, the S Pen. Digital pen right here, works with touch, works with the pen. We're going to look at it now. So here it is, finally, the Samsung Galaxy Note 2. A little less than a year since the original Note came out, that first big phablet with the digital pen. And this one offers a whole lot of improvements, certainly, in less than a year's time. First off, we have a 5.5-inch display that's up from the old 5.3-inch display on the original Note. Resolution, however, is actually slightly smaller. This is 1280 by 768 versus 1280 by 800, so not really wildly different, but since we're stretching the display size even more, that means more potential to actually see individual pixels. So I have to say this is a pretty good Super AMOLED display, and pixels are not jumping out to my average eyes. Inside, also a big improvement, especially from the US version that had the Qualcomm older generation CPU inside. Now we have a quad-core 1.6 GHz Exynos CPU. The same thing you'll find in the Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1 10.1-inch tablet. So pretty impressive. Mali 400 graphics there too as well. You got 2 gigs of RAM on board, and on the Sprint version 16 gigs of storage, but don't worry, that's not all. There is a micro SD card slot. Let's hear it for Samsung. They still believe in card slots and removable batteries. We take a look around the phone. 1.9 megapixel front video chat camera. We have our soft capacitive buttons right here. You can see they backlight with one for menu, one for back, and then this physical home button, that's a pushy clicky kind of thing. 0.37 inches thick, which is the same as the last Galaxy down here. Shiny, this is the titanium gray version. It's also available in marble white. We've got our micro SD card slot. This is where our S Pen lives. And just like the Galaxy Note 10.1, when you take this out, it automatically launches a palette of pen-aware applications if you wish it to do so. It can monitor whether the pen's there. It doesn't just monitor when the pen is there, it does other stuff too. Again, you can set whether it's going to launch that palette of applications. You can tell it that when the pen is inside to not monitor the active digitizer. That's dual digitizer on here, one for touch, one for this digital pen, so you can save some power. And then there's another feature too. It uses the accelerometer on the device, and it knows if the pen isn't there. So if you happen to walk away and go a certain distance away and your pen is not in the silo, it can warn you you forgot your pen. That's pretty cool. Samsung's good at those little features. On this side here, nothing but our volume controls. Samsung always likes to have their volume up here, and then the power on the opposing side, which is exactly where it is, right there. Up top we have our 3.5mm audio jack. And the back, this is, again, the titanium gray one. Typical Samsung shiny plastic. You know, I confess I actually like the look of the original Note a little bit better with the white or the dark gray option versus the super shiny thing. A little slippery, a little harder to keep in your hand, but, well, that is what it is. Speaker grill down here. Speaker has nice audio quality, pretty full, not hissy, not tinny, but not super duper loud. Again, pretty surprising for a big phone. The same thing was true with the original Note, though. It was not the loudest speaker. Here's your 8 megapixel camera up here with LED flash, and you're looking at pretty much the same module you get on the Samsung Galaxy S3, which isn't a bad thing because that's an excellent camera with neat features like HDR, panorama shot, and more. And if you want to take the back off, there's a little pull hole right up here. One wafer-thin plastic back. Here's our battery. Here's our micro SD card slot. And it would have a micro SIM slot if it were a carrier that actually used exposed micro SIMs or SIM cards for LTE service or just for general service, say for T-Mobile for the HSPA Plus and GSM services. The Note 2 is a little bit taller but narrower this way than the original Note, so that's more friendly to small hands if you have to wrap your hand around. Again, this is a big phone though. Folks with small hands are going to find this more than a handful. There are features on here that make it easier for one-handed operation. There's a bunch of options for one-handed operation. Moves the dialer off closer to one side so you can try to use one hand, but nothing's going to overcome the fact It's a huge phone. Of course, it is much more manageable than the LG Intuition here on Verizon. A 4:3 aspect ratio super phablet phone, which really is pretty much too big, I think, for anybody's hands to easily hold. And now we have it next to the Samsung Galaxy S3, itself a large phone, 4.8 inches right here. So, gee, we're just talking about the army of huge phones this year. So you can see the Note is still considerably bigger in terms of footprint. In terms of thickness, they are about the same, however, but you put one on top of the other and you can see there's a good deal more phone there. And if you want to compare it to something not huge, here's the iPhone 5, the big, tall, new iPhone 5, right? It looks like a dwarf, doesn't it, next to the Note? So for those of you who handled the iPhone 5, that gives you an idea, relatively speaking, how much bigger the Galaxy Note 2 is going to be. So while we're talking about how big a phone the Samsung Galaxy Note 2 is, just in case you want to know what it's like to hold it to your head, and I'm a 6-foot tall woman, so I'm not some little lady right here, this is what it looks like. Pretty big. You're going to want to use a Bluetooth headset most of the time, probably. So this guy is chock full of software features, much like the Galaxy S3 smartphone and even the 10.1 Galaxy Note tablet. More features than probably most of you are going to be able to remember how to use. We're going to show you a couple of them now, centering right now around the S Pen. So you see we took out the S Pen, so let's open up our little S Note widget over here, and then if we drop down you can see recommended applications that you might want to use with the pen. I've installed Adobe Reader, for example, which allows you to mark up documents. We've got the S Note, we've got a couple of apps like that. Handy dandy. And we've got the, well, it's the Write Anywhere feature, but what it really does is it takes a screenshot and it allows you to mark up afterwards. It sends things to the clipboard. Massive clipboard, you can have multiple entries there, but it's improved this time. If you go on the screen with your pen and you hold down the little button, you can just select a portion of it and it's going to save it to the clipboard. Right there, there it is, and I can go ahead and paste that into S Note if I want. Here we are in S Note, and there's my little clipping. So I paste it in, so I can resize that. I can actually do visual effects on that if I want. Say if I want to do an auto outline look. There it is with all the colors removed. And just like updated S Note on the original Note and on the Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1 tablet, you can do a whole lot more than paste cute pictures and resize them. You can do actual handwriting recognition, or you can write on the screen, and right now we're in writing and drawing mode. And here we are. Or you can write actual words too, obviously. And you can choose from a palette of colors. Go to Town Drawing, there's actually a nice selection of pens over here and pencils and tools, and you can just do a drop down and choose whatever color you want from a spectrum view as well. So that's pretty nice. And then we have straight text, which is going to use your keyboard, and here's what the on-screen keyboard looks like. Pretty typical for Samsung. I like that they have a little number row up here to make use of the screen real estate. And we've got our keyboard over here with some alternate symbols available for press and hold. And if you want to use voice command to input something instead, there's a voice command right there. And the most interesting of all here is we have handwriting recognition, formula recognition, and shape tidying. Shape tidying is for those of you who can't draw circles and squares perfectly, which would be most of us, and if that bothers you, well, you can make them nice and perfect. So right now we're in handwriting recognition mode. It actually works pretty well, even with my terrible, obviously, left-handed scrawl. It's still a little bit weird in terms of it's not object-oriented. After you write on the page, you can't pick up your text and drag it around. And whenever you stop writing and start again, it does not insert a space, which is why we have the little space tool right here. So if you write a full sentence naturally with spaces between the words, you're good. But if you stop to think in the middle, before you start, you're going to have to hit that space function right there. And then we have formula recognition, which also, well, does exactly what it says it does. It does a good job with formula recognition. And lastly, if we press and hold on the built-in keyboard on the microphone symbol, you can choose alternative input. You can switch between, you can see microphone, and this right here, which is the old-fashioned little handwriting tableau down here for those of you who are accustomed to that from, remember the days of the Palm Pilot and graffiti and pocket PCs and all that kind of thing. Actually works pretty well though, and it's nice because it does give you a smooth, clean area to write, and you're not trying to work yourself around whatever you already have on screen there. So here we'll test it out. Makes your handwriting look nicer than it would on paper, so it recognized that perfectly. Its first guess would be the word hello, which is indeed what we were shooting for. So it inserts hello. And there's our word hello. So that's S-Note. Pretty handy. Take notes, insert images, draw stuff, make directions, you name it. Just clip anything that you want from the screen and annotate it. That's what S-Note can do for you. And now we're playing a 1080p movie trailer, high profile. This is MPEG. Obviously, the huge screen, this is one of the things where the Galaxy Note 2 really shines. It's like having your own personal portable TV. It's so big. And with the S Pen, it knows when you're hovering and it can show you the frames. And with the S Pen, once you bring up the player controls, if you just hover over it, you can see the frame rates without actually touching the screen. You can just hover over it a distance away if you watch. See, I'm not actually really touching the screen.
I present my only son.
So as you can hear the speakers there, the quality was just fine, not very loud. We were almost at maximum volume there. Definitely you're going to want to use some headphones if you want. Plenty of audio to overcome ambient noise and also to be friendly to those folks who are around you. But in terms of video playback capabilities, nice. The screen looks lovely. This is really where the Samsung phone shines because it has those super saturated colors, makes everything look really vivid, great blacks, lots of contrast. And as with other Samsung devices, you can actually choose between a couple of different presets for more saturated or less saturated, that kind of thing to suit your preference. As always with the Super AMOLED display, color purists, photographers are going to like IPS displays more for more natural colors that are not overstated, but I think most people enjoy a little extra saturation in their life. Now in terms of software, this is running Android 4.1 Jelly Bean. Woohoo! Not too many phones are coming out with 4.1 Jelly Bean, but this is. But does this look a thing like the Nexus 7 tablet, for example, or the Nexus phones? No, it doesn't, because it's been very skinned over TouchWiz. You probably wouldn't even be able to tell from looking at whether this is ice cream sandwich or Jelly Bean. If we drag down, we get settings over here, we get quick settings and access to our wireless radios, we get notifications. We don't have the Google Now popping up there. And if you want to go to all settings, here it is, customized. Now you can actually choose the size of the font now, so I've set this down one notch below normal because normal size looks, well, really huge. If you don't have good eyes, you might like that, otherwise not so much. You can also tell it that you're left-handed for use with the pen, which is kind of handy for those of us who are a little sinister. And you can see we have the one-handed operation feature here, which you can apply to the keyboard, the calculator, the unlock pattern even, and keypad and in-call buttons. We'll turn that one on, and in fact we'll turn it on for the Samsung keyboard too. And that was one-handed operation. We have a teeny little keyboard shifted over to the side here, which I'm not sure that's more useful. The idea is if you're holding it in this hand and you're reaching with your thumb that you won't have to stretch quite as far. And here we have the one-handed keypad option, so it brings again everything over a little bit smaller. And you can switch between which side you want it to be closer to just by using the little arrows. And we'll turn that off so you can see what it would look like normally. And there's your normal dialer right there. Big and live and large with the usual shortcuts to your call logs, favorites, and your contacts. Now Samsung makes use of their fast hardware and all of the sensors everywhere in many ways. First off, we have PageBuddy here, which uses sensors that know if you pulled out the S Pen, for example, it's going to open up the Pen Aware applications palette. If you plug in headphones, it can launch a palette of audio applications for you. And here we have Smart Rotation, and this uses the front camera a lot like SmartStay does, which it also has. SmartStay flashes the camera on every so often to see if your face is still there looking at the display, and it won't turn it off if you're still looking at it, which is handy. Smart Rotation looks at the orientation of your face and tries to avoid those accidental rotations that happen when you do things like lean back, plop down on a bed, that sort of thing. That one, mildly effective, I would say. SmartStay works very well unless you're in a really, really dark room where it can't see you anymore. And here you can choose your font style and your font size. Set your touch key light duration for these capacitive buttons down here. And the usual auto adjusting of screen tone, which means if it's fairly light background, it's going to dim things down, figuring that that's going to be a little extra bright for you. I generally leave that turned off because it makes pages, white web pages, look a little too dark. And you can show your battery as a percentage. Speaking of battery, 3100 milliamp battery in here. That is one big battery. The original Note had 2500, which sounded pretty impressive at the time, but as these phones get bigger and faster, we need bigger and bigger batteries. Nice that Samsung did not have to make this guy any thicker to hold that high capacity battery in here. And so far we've managed to go through the day without a problem on a charge, and that's with LTE on. You can see we do actually have LTE coverage on Sprint here. And speaking of LTE on Sprint, we have it, but it's kind of hit or miss right now in terms of speed. We'll run a test right now so you can see it in action. Not super duper speeds. 5 days ago we were actually getting better speeds, so really it's up to the network in your area and what Sprint coverage you have on LTE. Network is still pretty young yet. And sometimes it seems to get a little bulky with those uploads, but there you have it. 2.9 megabit down, 2.4 up, and you can see our results. The quite low numbers are when we were on EVDO Rev A 3G. The higher numbers, when we're not in the 300s, when we're in the several megabit, are on LTE and Sprint. So some of the numbers get pretty good. We've got as high as almost 8.5 megabit down. Still, we're not there to compete with Verizon or with AT&T, or honestly, if you're in HSPA plus T-Mobile area, even with that carrier when it comes to 4G speeds. But 6 months from now, hopefully things will be rocking along fast. Call quality on the phone is good. Not super duper stellar, but pretty darn good. And part of the problem for outgoing calls is you have to have a pretty long face to use this if you're speaking to the phone rather than using a Bluetooth headset, because you've got your earpiece here, you've got your mic down here, and well, not everybody can actually get their face reaching that far. Customize this a lot like the Galaxy S3. We have the division here between apps, the usual widgets, and boy, there are a lot of widgets on here. We have assistive light, we have a couple of different clocks. We have Samsung's really nice calendar view here, which is a customizable calendar. It looks a little bit retro, but it also does a good job of showing all your appointments in a legible way with color coding. And we'll actually go with that one and plop that down. It's a big widget, so we're going to have to find enough space for it. And that's how you do it right there. So, nice looking calendar. If we go back to our widgets. All the standard Google widgets are here as well. You've got Media Hub widgets for Samsung's Media Hub service, Google+, Pictures, S-Note. So a nice selection of widgets, and then this one over here is if you just want to see those applications that you've downloaded, so handy organizational stuff there. In terms of built-in software, really it's going to be the same on just about any carrier in terms of what built-in Samsung apps you're going to get, which include Media Hub, Samsung's own video and music players. In addition, of course, you get the standard Google ones as well. Keys Air for keys syncing over Wi-Fi. Flipboard is preloaded on here. Samsung has a deal going with them lately. Obviously the S-Note application. And we also have a little painting application called Paper Artist, where basically you take a photograph and you paint over it with your finger or the stylus pen, whichever you prefer, to put effects on top of it. And each carrier is going to have their own applications. In this case, because it's a Sprint phone, we have Sprint Zone, Sprint Worldwide, Sprint's voicemail, and that's pretty much about it. And Samsung includes their own file manager. There's no Chrome on board, which is interesting. With Jelly Bean, so far we've seen that Google has switched phones completely over to the Chrome web browser. This one still has the original internet web browser. That may in part be because Samsung has some customizations they did to the web browser that they wanted to hold onto. You can, of course, download Chrome. And Adobe Flash for Android is no more. It's not available on the Google Play Store. You can still get it if you go to Adobe's own website and search for it and then download it. Use the little file manager that's on here to run it, install it. But the thing is with Jelly Bean, pretty much it's blocked from working on any of the Google offered web browsers, so it's really not going to get you too far. But there is HTML5 video as a consolation. And if we take a look at the web browser, you may not be getting any more pixels on this compared to the Samsung Galaxy S3, but because it's such a big screen, it's easier to read without zooming. You feel like you can almost read this in portrait mode. This is our own website, full HTML, not a mobile website. And if you go sideways, definitely is readable, which is nice. Of course, it's extremely fast phones, so everything is very responsive here in terms of pinch zooming, loading web pages. And there's our little menu of things that we can do, adding bookmarks, requesting desktop view, controlling the brightness within the web browsers, one of Samsung's favorite little features to do. We've got wireless printing shortcut right here, access to downloads real quick, and then all settings. So let's check out a video. YouTube format HTML5 and see how it plays. This is our Microsoft Surface RT review, Microsoft's first self-made tablet. And we're trying to do this over Sprint's 4G network. We may have to switch over to Wi-Fi to get this working. There we go. This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the speaker quality is pretty good. It may not be hugely loud, but
Surface RT tablet. This is running.
And there it is, and this is over Sprint's LTE network, so not bad.
Versus regular Windows 8 Professional. But first off, it's
again, really huge screen, awesome for watching video. Performance on the phone, as you would expect, is awesome. That Exynos 1.6 GHz quad-core CPU with Mali 400 graphics scores 6001 on Quadrant, putting it right at the top. In fact, that's better than Tegra 3 phones, which we really don't even get in the US, but you folks overseas get that. Those tend to score about 5,000 or so, and it's better than the Qualcomm S4 standard CPU. The S4 Pro is getting close there, but still not quite as good. On Antutu, we scored 14,056. That is a new high watermark for benchmarking. GL Benchmark, the Egypt 2.1 Classic off-screen test inside GL Benchmark 2.5, 58 frames per second and 66 frames off-screen. Again, a new high for our benchmarks. And SunSpider, 1052. The only thing that's scoring higher right now is the iPhone 5, and that's markedly better than other Android phones on the market, many of which score closer to 2,000, where lower numbers are better. And here we are in the camera right now. Again, 8 megapixel rear shooter, fast lens, backside illuminated sensor. Everything you got in the Galaxy S3 you're getting here, so a nice step up from the original Galaxy Note. So you switch between your front and rear cameras. There's our flash control. This one here has single shot, best face detection mode, panorama, share shot, HDR mode, buddy photo share, and beauty shot, which gives you a soft focus right there. So lots of stuff to do, putting all the processing power to good use. And then your color effects are over here. And then even more settings, burst shot, flash control, again, exposure, focus timer, resolution, white balance, ISO, metering, everything a Shutterbug could possibly want. If you want to tell it where to focus, if that seems to be necessary, you can do so, and then it takes a picture just that quick. And if you want to shoot video, move the slider down to video. And we're going to go for normal recording right there. And so now I'm taking a video of our little Sesame Street friend there and say I want to take some still shots at the same time. Just press the camera button, you can see the screen flashing and it's taking those pictures. And then we have quick access to the gallery here. And there's our video of our little friend. So now I'm taking a video of our little Sesame Street friend there and say I want to take some still shots at the same time. Really good voice quality there. And there's our still shots of our little friend that we took as well. Now so you can see some more pictures that we took. Nice spooky Halloween pictures. Good camera, definitely good camera. Nice colors. Fast zooming. Sweet, really sweet. Good times. And now gaming. Obviously another thing that a 5.5-inch incredibly fast phone is good for, and we're going to play Beach Buggy Blitz. Certainly plays very smoothly. Looks great. Colorful game on a colorful screen. Good times. So though you don't get Tegra 3 optimizations in Tegra Zone games, it's still looking very awesome, playing perfectly smoothly. Excellent gaming machine this. Now here's the big dilemma for some of you folks. Galaxy S3 right here, Galaxy Note 2 right here. Now one of the biggest selling points, a year ago when the Galaxy Note came out, was the fact that it was a higher resolution display, 1280 by 800, and that was at a time when the Samsung Galaxy S2 was still rocking along at 800 by 480 pixels, so you weren't getting a whole lot of resolution. So it wasn't just that it was a bigger screen, it was, you saw a lot more stuff on screen. Much sharper, higher resolution image, more of a web page to view. Now you're looking at two phones that actually have the same resolution. The Galaxy S3 is actually a 4.8-inch phone. That is not that small. That is not that much smaller than the original Galaxy Note. So for those of you who want the pen features particularly, I would say the Galaxy Note 2 is obviously the way to go because it's unique in the way that it has that active digital pen that's really nice and very precise. But for those of you who think, well, the pen isn't really where it's at for me, I just want a big high-resolution display, I would say if you can, go to a store and try out holding the Note 2 in your hand to see how the size feels to you compared to the Galaxy S3, because the Galaxy S3 somehow feels downright petite next to it, and usually it feels like one of the biggest phones on the market. So that's the Samsung Galaxy Note 2, again available on all carriers, $299 generally the price with contract. Certainly a nice phone, certainly a large phone. Yeah, I have big hands and it's still a handful. But if you want the biggest, if you want the best, it's still the Galaxy Note 2 in the world of Android. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Visit our website for the full review and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.